Hello again, comrades, dear viewers, followers. We are back for part two of our the socialist direction of Africa. For this one, I will be more political. I will show more content in terms of my economical proof of what I'm saying, how we can grow and develop Africa. For many years, Africa has suffered slavery. We're also now suffering economic slavery when our resources are being stolen to Europe, which now Europe is now a continent in retreat as the Soviet army, or what we call the Russian army, is moving westwards, reclaiming their stolen lands and making sure that Ukraine does not join ever NATO, as they've been warning them, the Baltic countries. Now they were finalizing to take Ukraine, which was a red zone for them. So they're in the retreat. So this is a turning point for us as Africans. We need to navigate the storm very, very carefully. And we need to strategize our economic our position as China becomes the global leader. It's best that we all now should focus mostly on socialism. As it has been done in China, we know the socialism work. We know why capitalism doesn't work. Capitalism doesn't work because it needs the slaves. It needs the poor class, which is the bearer of the brand of the rich classes. So once you divide people into classes, that means there will always be poverty, because there must always be a poor class. You can never have capitalism in any capitalist country where you have a rich class and a middle class, and that's it. There has to be a poor class. Unfortunately, in the case of Africa, which is one of the extreme situations, we have a situation whereby the ANC has made itself either exist in the middle class or the upper echelon of the rich class, and the black majority of voters are suffering extreme poverty, where they're being fed by the state every day by welfare and grants. A deaded state where if the state does no longer afford to pay them, which will happen soon enough, we risk 20 million African people, South African people, dying of hunger and starvation. This will be worse than Ethiopia or anywhere else, unless if we now make that transition to socialism, which will better the lives of all African people. You will see in this part two of the socialist direction of Africa, I will be more political and I will be more economical as well, showing exactly what's happening. We'll have to deal also with the geopolitics of the world and how that influences Africa. Thank you very much.
I would like now to begin with a short clip from Mbeki, where he detailed the failures of the ANC. Why are we in the state of poverty? Why is the majority of black people poor and all the white people are still owning the capital? And why is the ANC people the only people who are now enjoying the wealth of this country, and the rest of us are suffering in slumbers and living in palace? Mbeki will tell you here in his own true thought. This man, I used to doubt him, honestly, but I've realized over the years that he was always advising us against the correct things, that ANC is leading you to the graves. Please listen.
Okay, and in terms of, so what, and your read of the last year's election result? What's happening there?
Well, in last year's, the middle class took power, as I say, in the African middle class took power in 1994. And to me, their biggest mistake was to focus on developing the middle class instead of developing the black masses, African, colored, Indian, poor, and working class. They decided to focus on developing the welfare of the African middle class through two policies: black economic empowerment and affirmative action in the state. Black economic empowerment in the private sector and affirmative action in the public sector. So initially they sold this strategy as being a strategy for advancement of all the black people. But the colors and the Indians soon realized that, no, we are left out of this. So that's why they joined the DA.
Yes.
And because they had been with the Africans since the 50s, fighting together. You know, the Defiance campaign in 1952 was led by an Indian called Yusuf Kachalia and an African called Nelson Mandela, working together. So the ANC and the Transvaal and the Natal Indian Congress were partners from the early 50s. Right up until black economic empowerment was implemented, when then the Indians were left out and the colors were left out and the whites who supported the ANC were left out. So they advanced the African middle class. And that the culmination of this was going to be, so they alienated first the colored population, the Indian population, the white population, and now they've alienated the mass of the African population. So that's why they lost power. And that's why they can never get power back.
That one kind of once that so you're saying that once the decision has been taken to leave the movement, it's almost impossible to bring people back in.
Very difficult.
And do you think something like, maybe President Ramaphosa living up to what we think might be his completely fabricated reputation of this great reformer, if he actually does live up to this reputation and begins to implement a series of reforms that unlocks the potential for the poor black masses to enter into the workforce, to start to get a foot onto the economic ladder, is that something that might save the ANC, go so far as to save the ANC, or is the idea just kind of dead now?
No, that won't happen. It can't happen, because for it to happen, you have to lower the consumption level of the African middle class. The South African state, as you pointed, you have observed yourself, is hugely bloated with the African middle class. So if you're going to now focus resources into, for example, repairing the aircraft, but that's investment, which means you have to cut off the consumption of the African middle class, and they will never agree to it.
Yes.
So that's where we're sitting as a country. The IMF did a study a few years ago of remuneration of the public sector in South Africa. It's probably the highest in the world as a percentage of gross domestic product.
Jeepers.
So
I'd like to show a short clip of Dr. Walter Rodney detailing how capitalism doesn't work in Africa and how the socialist direction is the only direction in Africa. He is detailing it more or less the same way as Meleke Mbeki is saying, but more on a theoretical basis. Meleke Mbeki was showing this proof on a painful fact that we are living in South Africa in a class-based society where a majority of our people are poor and suffering. But what Rodney is only showing theoretical. Remember, these books were written in the 60s. The people would have read these books and understand if they were true revolutionaries, but they were not. They were nothing but opportunity to feed their stomachs, which are doing today, and our suffering of our people. Listening, thank you.
On the basis of communalism and without having to experience the full development of classes characteristic of capitalism. It can further be argued that a colony or semi-colony within the imperialist framework can never develop to full capitalist maturity. Africa has experienced almost as many years of capitalist development as Europe. But in our case, the unfolding of capitalism has meant historical arrest and backwardness. The accompanying stratification never approximated to the dynamic of capitalism in the metropoles. Thus, one could never expect capitalism to perform in Africa the historically progressive role it played in Western Europe. This is yet another fact of a more refined theory concerning the states of human social advance. Such a theory must cease assuming that development is self-contained for any given group or society. And this line of reasoning also reinforces the conclusion that for Africa, a different path to socialism is not only possible, but is unavoidable. An ideology such as Ujamaa is scientific insofar as logically and scientifically it charts this new path. The fact that the path of Ujamaa in broad outline is so reminiscent of one perceived by Marx is a salutary coincidence insofar as this particular discussion is concerned. Since so much of Marx's time was spent applying his scientific method to a critique of capitalism in Western Europe, any debate outside that geographical area cannot be tied merely to what Marx said, as though scientific socialism were entirely comprised within the pages of Marx's writings. Marxism, when considered as synonymous with scientific socialism, means the application of scientific method, of which Marx was a founder, to the study of any given situation. This is a task of such complexity that Marx and Engels often issued warnings that the chances of incorrect conclusions were high. However, the argument that Ujamaa is consistent with scientific socialism is made easier to substantiate because of Marx's conclusions with regard to an obviously analogous situation. The Marxist who considers the stress on traditional African communalism as theoretically incompatible with a scientific socialist approach must bear the onus of proving that Marx's brief application of his own theory was unscientific in the Russian case. At the same time, the non-Marxist, seeking to isolate Ujamaa from what he imagines to be scientific socialism, must at least be brought up short in light of evidence that Marx himself explicitly countenanced the possibility of a development towards socialism that integrated peasant collectives from the communal epoch. After Marx's time, new scientific socialist ideas have been elaborated out of revolutionary experience. Their accuracy and relevance have been tested by nothing less than the experience of building socialism in economically backward countries in the teeth of imperialist opposition.
I would like to now conclude, but not completely finish, by showing off the economy. As you can see on the clips there that I'm showing the current state of the global economy, where Africa is now showing that there will be cut of aid to Africans. The G20 meeting was just a short spectacle. Decisions have already been made. Aid is being cut, and the very fact that we are being ruled by billionaires, showing you that it feels that Ramaphosa is worth about $150 billion US. And finally, there's a clip also showing that the ANC billionaires, a book by Detroit. Yes, we have been run by capitalists, and that's why we're accumulating more and more poor people. So I will show now also the economy of the two countries. If you watch the first episode, I just show economy of Zimbabwe, economy of Africa, economy of Tanzania and Kenya. But I'll now be combining those economies to show you practically where South Africa is, that we are on a downward trajectory. So yeah, look in, then I'll finalize after this clip and the economic demonstration. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video, share with friends. This is very important for 20 million plus Africans in danger of dying of starvation and poverty because of the ANC capitalism. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for reaching this point in the video. Now I want to demonstrate the economic state that we are in Africa. As I've said, the current direction that Africa is taking is the most dangerous direction of capitalism, which will destroy our country completely. So here I've listed 4 economies. If you watched my first videos, I was describing these 4 economies of Africa. I'm showing you Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, now all combined together into one. I know this one is very class shot. You cannot really see, but we'll try to walk through it a bit. But as you can see, I will show you, I think I've shown you the path from the previous video, but what I will show you in this current video is that maybe how things look at this point. Zimbabwe economy is growing at 2%. And then it's very class shot, but then Kenya's economy is growing at 4.5%. And the Tanzania economy is growing at 5.5. Where's Africa? Somewhere right in the bottom here at 0.6 growth, right? Now, this is the growth of the economy. We're not saying what the GDP is. The GDP of Africa is, of course, is big because Africa has been settled. Settlers, white settlers have developed this economy for a long time. But in terms of growth, we're going to negative growth. We have to concern ourselves with the current growth, not with growth, not to what your economy is. It's like you come from a rich family, but your family is actually the businesses have fallen, they're not making any money. So they're continuously going down the economic drain. Whereas your neighbor who has started off as a poor family, they're getting employed, they're getting this, they're getting that, they're starting new business. They're on the positive trajectory. So what I'm saying here is that's the same thing. South Africa might have a bigger GDP. I don't care about the bigger GDP. I'm talking about the future growth, which is more important because we have, in fact, people of the future, not of the past. So I'm going to continue to explain. So now, this chart is very clustered. I'm going to show you in terms of bar chart. Bar chart example. Here's what I'm saying. Tanzanian economy is growing at 5.5. Kenyan economy is it's lower. Yeah, as I'm saying, the South African economy is not growing at all. I mean, there is no way that we're going to solve out the problem of unemployment in this current situation that we're going on. Right now, I know it's 2024, but 2025 results is 0.8. 0.8 is not growth. We have to look at the facts in this country, what's happening. I'm going to now demonstrate unemployment. The biggest problem that's going to kill us is unemployment. Unemployment of South Africa is 33.5%. That implies that about over 20 million people in this country are employed and they're being fed by government grants. And the World Bank has shown, and the IMF has shown, they are not going to cut this debt. This thing of Ramaphosa walking around in G20 pretending that he's doing something is nonsense, utter nonsense. The G20 is not where decisions are made. Decisions are made behind closed doors, where these people discuss, and where IMF, World Bank will tell you the people that they owe, they are not going to cut the debt that we have in South Africa. Our GDP ratio is crazy. It's about 70%. Most of the money in our GDP has to go to debt than servicing our people. So these capitalists, these guys have pushed us into with a president who's about 45 billion US dollar in his pocket. You think he really cares about the poor man who's dying of hunger there? Think about it. Only socialism, where there's no class division, where people are united, can we be used to save or to develop the millions of our people instead of a few class of the ANC people that are running the show. Okay, so let me go to the unemployment of these 4 countries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for reaching this far in the video. I'm just showing you from the map side. I've just only selected map, nothing to be alarmed about. South Africa's unemployment is 33.17%. Unemployment of Zimbabwe is sitting at 8.55%. Unemployment of Tanzania is sitting at 2.58%. Unemployment of Kenya is sitting at 5.3%. This is the worst unemployment in the world, in any standard of any country in the world. Why we're in the G20 is because of the so-called nice democracy of saving the whites. Saving the whites for what? For them to be rich while we are suffering and dying of hunger. So I'm going to show you now on the bar chart. On the bar chart, the most unemployed country in the world, that is. You can see the graph level, the distance, the gap here in South Africa. Yes, it's sitting at remember the dates, the values might be different because of the dates that are given. This is 2024. It means the map is got an older date, in fact, compared to the
to the bar chart. So you can see Zimbabwe is hovering at 8.6, Kenya at 5.4, South Africa at 2 and 2.6. So obviously this is the linear graph. You can see that these economies here are not so far apart. You can see they belong to the same continent, or they're actually economies, that exist in this current world, man. Not this craziness that's happening here. Unemployment has been rising since 1991, as you can see. There's never been change. There's nothing positive that these people have ever been doing in this government. And we're on the rise. At least Zimbabwe is gone up there, but they're on a low trajectory. Kenya, low trajectory. It means they're employing their people. They're continuing saving the lives of their people. Yeah? It's just an uprise. So yes, thank you very much for reaching this point of the video. And I'm about to conclude with some few clips from our very own, or the great Kwame Nkrumah. And then we'll finalize. Thank you very much. And please like and share the video with friends and family. Thank you.
Welcome to the Great African Leadership Series, where we feature great inspirational speeches and quotes from African leaders.
Fellow freedom fighters, comrades and friends, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Accra and to this conference of African freedom fighters and supporters of the growing movement for Africa's liberation and unity. It is good for our cause to have a periodic meeting of this kind to examine our position in the great struggle to rid Africa completely and forever of imperialism and its handmaidens, colonialism and neocolonialism. Africa is rich and not poor. As the great wealth that has been taken out of our continent over 5 centuries of spoliation and extortion very well proves. Africa has immense actual and potential wealth: gold, diamond, copper, manganese, bauxite, iron ore, uranium, asbestos, chrome, cobalt, a host of other minerals. Our essential agricultural produce have all been drained away by colonialist imperialism. Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their lands. If we are being baited to enter a European community, we must have something that community needs, and needs badly, when it pretends to offer a bonus by way of aid. When Greeks come bearing grapes, should we not look them well in the mouth? If I may mix my metaphor, but I'm sure you get my meaning. I raise this point so that it will stay in your minds when you may be tempted by the seductive promises of new colonialism to forget the real character of colonialist imperialism and be persuaded away from your own true interests and those of Africa. For today, we must each see ourselves as part of Africa in order that we may face colonialist imperialism and its new form, neocolonialism, on a continent-wide front. This requires some plain speaking. And for the sake of Africa, let us speak plainly. As I see it, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations the realization of our objective of total African independence and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now. For only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. Some of the leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with sly satisfaction, as well as contempt for those who fail to see how they are being used against Africa's best interests. Regrettably, those states include some who were among the freedom fighters of yesterday and who haven't won their independence are willing to drop it for some token aid and thereby deny to those still struggling for freedom even their moral support. Here is a phenomenon against which all African freedom fighters must be on their guard and resist to the utmost. Even though I appreciate the difficulties facing us, I must admit, I find it strange to watch some of us returning willingly to the colonialist fold. This time, they don't even have the excuse of being forced to subject themselves to foreign domination. It makes one wonder, why so much effort and sacrifice and so many lives were given up to the achievement of independence in the first place, if it can only be so quickly and easily surrendered. We must begin to build immediately our own continental common market. For it is easy for anyone who studies the common market organization closely to realize that the common market is aimed at harnessing the African countries to satisfy the profit lust of the imperialist bloc and to prevent us from following an independent neutralist policy. It is easy to see that the imperialists and the colonialists are determined to retain the African countries in the position of suppliers of cheap raw material. If we do not resist this threat, and if we throw in our lot with the common market, we shall doom the economy of Africa to a state of perpetual subjection to the economy of Western Europe. This will, of course, hinder the industrialization of our young African states. It is impossible to think of economic development and national independence without possessing an unfettered capacity for maintaining a strong industrial power. The activities of the common market are therefore fraught with dangerous political and economic consequences for the independent African states. The organization constitutes an attempt to replace the old system of colonial exploitation by a new system of collective colonialism, which will be stronger and more dangerous than the old evils we are striving to liquidate from our continent. This is another reason why we should come together in a unified African economic plan, which, operating on a continental scale, can make a solid attack on the imperialist domination in Africa. We should, without delay, aim at the creation of a joint African military command. There is little wisdom in our present separate effort to build up and maintain defense forces, which, in any case, would be ineffective in a major world conflict. If we examine this problem realistically, we would ask, which single African state could protect itself against an imperialist aggressor? And how much more difficult this would be when some states are allowing the imperialists to maintain bases on their territories. I have already referred to the military forces which South Africa is raising and the danger it poses for the new African states and the struggle of those still in chains. Only our unity can provide us with anything like adequate protection. Those problems can best be met within a unified Africa. And it should be possible in the higher reaches of our endeavor to devise a constitutional structure which will secure the objectives I have outlined and yet preserve the sovereignty of each of the countries joining the Union. Countries within the Union will naturally maintain their own constitutions, continue to use their own national emblems and national anthems and other symbols and paraphernalia of sovereignty. Regional associations and territorial groupings can only be other forms of balkanization unless they are conceived within the framework of a continental union. There are existing models which we can modify or adapt to our pattern. The United States of America, the Soviet Union, India and China have proved the efficacy of unions embracing large stretches of land and population. Long live African freedom fighters. Long live African independence. Long live your struggle. And long live African unity.
And share this video with friends and family to support the channel.
Yes, we have come to the end of the Socialist Direction of Africa, Part 2. Thank you very much. This is the end. Thank you very much for reaching the end with me. And I hope you like the video. Subscribe, share with friends, share with family. And thank you very much for the support. As you have heard the last word from Kwame Nkrumah in Accra, where he delivered the most powerful speech ever spoken by any African leader, to my view. Yes, thank you. We continue to research the economic state of Africa, and I will continue to give you good and quality products, quality information, so that you can know exactly what's happening in your continent, and you can one day move this continent to a socialist direction. Thank you very much.